I was interested to see that your books are called political thrillers.
Sometimes. They're called everything under the sun, it seems like. I've espionage novels, political thrillers, straight-up thrillers, literary thrillers, mysteries.
I was trying to figure out what the difference between a political thriller and an espionage novel is. Do you have a working definition?
I'll let you know if I ever come up with one. I don't really care what they call them as long as they don't call them a crummy book. So,
well, that's good, right? I agree there. But no, I just thought it was an interesting distinction.
It is, and I'm not quite sure why that is.
And I say that because I had just written a piece for our monthly newsletter, The Book News, in which I had assembled together some new, I think I called it, this is the 100th anniversary year in 2008, as you probably know, of Ian Fleming.
Yes.
He was born 100 years ago. So there's a huge James Bond thing going on. Sebastian Falk is writing Devil May Care, which is I think an officially sanctioned thing of the Fleming estate, so he's writing it as though Ian Fleming had come back and we're writing James Bond. And then there's a whole bunch of spin-off stuff. There's a Miss Moneypenny, you know, intended for your eyes only. And then Stella Remington, who I think is fascinating. She shares your publisher, Crop. She's coming to see us in July of this year with her third book, and I was interested that the Arizona Science Museum had a Bond exhibit a couple of years ago, and they mentioned that Judi Dench and her role in the Daniel Craig movie, Emma's become a woman because Stella Remington in, I think, 1995 became the first female head of MI.
Right. That's,
do I get this right? 6 or 5?
I think it was. I think it.
Which is the foreign and which is the domestic?
Now you've got me. I would probably say the wrong one if I said it. So.
Well, she's the head of military and the MI for foreign, and I absolutely loved her her first book, At Risk, because the central question she had was, you know, how does security deal with a native-born terrorist?
Right.
You can't really see them because they're not coming in illegally. They probably look like everybody else. They talk like everybody else.
They know all the local routines.
Right, and Britain, I think, has been having a really tremendously difficult time.
They have.
With homegrown jihadists.
Yes, they have. And they know the system inside out and how to deal with it, too. So.
Right. So there's all this stuff going about Bond. So I pulled together maybe 8 entries, all cycling around the Bond, and of course there's a new movie in November. And then I wrote something called, you know, more super spy stuff, in which John le Carré has a new novel in October. And then I suddenly ran into this political thriller definition for you, and I thought, okay, do I put Dan in with, you know, these other people? Because I think of you as sort of in the tradition of Graham Greene and le Carré, or are you not?
I don't know, because I never overtly write about politics.
No.
So I'm a little mystified as to where that description comes from. But I write about events which always get wrapped up in politics. So maybe that's where it comes from. Because anytime you write about the Middle East, which is where most of the amateur spy is set, things get political whether you like it or not. People are going to be looking for points of view and dissecting them and whatnot. But it is not what I would call a political novel. It's just they're in a region that gets embroiled in politics.
I've had an inspiration just sitting here thinking about it. If Matt Benyon-Reese also, maybe the difference is that you don't focus on spycraft.
Maybe so, because if anything, the amateur spy, he's someone who's not versed at all in spycraft.
Right,
and
but I mean, when
it.
we think of Bond, what do we think about? We think to a great degree
of gadgets and
the car, all of that stuff, and maybe that's the difference.
Right, true. And there aren't too many martinis in the amateur spy either. So.
I think John le Carré has moved very much into, if that definition might be true, has moved very much into a political thriller arena.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, he's come a long way since The Spy Who Came In From the Cold, or The Secret Pilgrim, where he has, what's the name? Smiling. Where he has the old spy kind of schooling the Cold War spies, you know, and tricks of the trade and all. But his last books have been really not about spycraft, but other themes. So maybe I'll use that. Thank you.
Okay.
As a working definition, because it's really been sort of irritating me the last couple of days. I keep chewing over that, thinking, now why?
Yeah.
All right. So Vlado Petric is your guy. Did I pronounce that right, or is it a different pronunciation?
The Balkan pronunciation would be Vlado Petric.
Petrich.
Yeah.
Okay, so the little accenty thing is
Yeah, you would have that on there.
like the Russian. I do speak Russian, but
Yeah.
I do not speak the Baltic languages. All right, so Vlado Petrich is a guy, and you're in Sarajevo, and you are in, what, the Bosnian War?
Right.
Not
in
the Gulf
first,
War.
In the first two books, right. In the
What a
Bosnian
terrible
War.
thing that was.
It was. I guess you can say that about all wars, but that one was the added ingredient of neighbor against neighbor. People, literally, they lived next door to for 20, 30 years, and they suddenly turn on each other.
Do you think it was obvious that when Marshal Tito died that Yugoslavia would devolve back into its component parts?
I don't think it was obvious. I think it was fairly inevitable once people like Milosevic started taking advantage of the worry in the wake of all that and saying, oh, here's what I can exploit and use to my purposes to consolidate my power among one group of people here by turning them against these other groups of people.
And it's largely divided by what? Religious lines? Religious and ethnic?
Religious and ethnic, they're all part and parcel. So many of those people were no longer at all religious or were very secular in their approach to it. Muslims who drank, Orthodox who hadn't been to church in years, same with some of the Catholics. But the religion was an ingredient in helping sort of bring it back to the fore, trying to firing people up and making them religious again and making them nationalistic again.
It's interesting that Croatia has probably become the new hotspot. I've just bought a book.
Beautiful country.
Oh, it is gorgeous. But I was thinking, we toured the Aegean a couple years ago, went to Mykonos and Santorini and some of those Greek isles that have now become discovered and are filled with Euro trash and
yeah, they're overrun.
Oh, terrible, and super touristy and all. And then we went to Croatia last year, and you could see that it was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it hasn't quite happened yet.
Yeah.
And Croatia was in fact part of the Roman Empire and very Italian and very Roman Catholic.
Yeah.
So you've got Dubrovnik, and then you've got this kind of thin slice up the coast.
Yeah, Istria further north.
Right, but I mean Croatia basically is a long, thin country down the edge of the Balkans.
Right.
And then you have the Serbs. They are located where?
They're located further inland and on the other side of Bosnia, basically, in what a lot of people think of as the heart of what was Yugoslavia, with Belgrade and all of those cities further east.
And were the Serbs, what? Were they Orthodox?
Well, then you have Montenegro, too, which is part of
Right.
Serbia-Montenegro, which does come up to the coast.
Is Kotor a Montenegrin city, or is that Albania?
That Kotor?
Kotor, I'm probably pronouncing it incorrectly.
I'm not sure on
It's
that.
right below Dubrovnik, and they're pairing them up for various
It sounds like
cruise
it's right in
destinations.
the border area. Yeah, it's probably in Croatia, but
I think it's Montenegro, actually.
yeah,
But
it could be.
of course, all I know about Montenegro,
I
I
don't know
know
that
from Rex
city.
Stout at Nero Wolf and whatever it is, the Black Mountain. But anyway, what were the Bosnians religiously? The people lived in Bosnia. The
They
Serbs?
were all three, and the majority population was Muslim, but as I said, it was a very secular brand of
Right.
Islam. And then you had your ethnic Serbs and your ethnic Croats in Bosnia. So those were the three groups that fell into fighting each other, and the Serbs had the advantage of most of what was then the Yugoslav People's Army, which was dominated by a Serbian officer corps, came in and really helped them dominate early in that war.
See, it really is still a very tribal area, isn't it?
It is. I haven't been back there in a good number of years, so I'm not sure what the state of things are. But I think in Bosnia it's not too bad. It's in Kosovo and the Albanian border, in the area where it's still a big problem.
Czechoslovakia also split up, didn't it?
Yeah, the
into-
Czech Republic and Slovakia.
Although it broke away, I think, as one, but then
Right. It split
Bratislava.
up pretty quickly, yeah.
Right, so maybe it just isn't possible to sort of wheel together. I mean, Russia devolved also
Yeah.
into component countries when the Soviet Union broke up.
Yeah, the problem with these breakups is that as they break up, all of the constituent republics all want to claim whatever borders existed at the height of their power or the zenith of their influence. So it's a good thing Sweden doesn't do that, or they would want about half of Europe.
Very true, if you went back to 1620.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So they sacked so many cities all over Europe that if they ever got a mind to start doing that, things would be a real problem.
Actually, there's a chunk of Finland that sort of has moved from Sweden to Russia and back more
Right.
than once.